Hello, everyone. Welcome to YF 500 Foundations of Youth Ministry here at Fuller Theological Seminary with me, Dr. Tom Combs. I am your professor, and I'm really excited about journeying with you over the next 10 weeks of this course. What I want to accomplish right now is a little bit of an introduction to me as your professor, and then a good bit of introduction to the course itself, so you have a pretty good feel about what's going to happen over the next 10 weeks. So a little bit about me. I live here in the northwest corner of Georgia in the deep south in a little town called Rome, Georgia, about 35,000 people. We left the big city of Atlanta about 4 years ago. We moved here to Rome, Georgia, quaint, lovely little town nestled in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains here in Georgia. The best kept secret in the state. Come visit us sometime in Rome, Georgia. I live in Rome, Georgia with my family. I have a wife, Wendy. I have two daughters, one who's in middle school and one who's about to finish elementary school. So I've got a middle schooler in middle school ministry. I have my own little laboratory, my experiment for middle school ministry going on in our house right now. So we'll talk more about that later on. My wife, Wendy, is a nurse by professional vocation, but she's made a vocational change in the last few years, and now she works in ministry, outreach ministry to teen moms, which is lovely and beautiful and complicated and challenging all at the same time. But it's a real treat to watch her because she's so good and gifted in it. And it's awesome in a lot of ways because it allows us to involve our entire family in the ministry. So we've got two babysitters right there who are part of the ministry to teen moms. Here we are on a little family outing. We got to go snow skiing in the mountains of North Carolina this past year for the first time. So I'll just say this. There's a lot I could say about my family. But as a dad, as a husband, I am so grateful to be associated with these folks here. They're the best, and I just wanted to tell you, I love my family. I love being part of my family, and I love who they are and who we get to be together. I work full time for an organization called Young Life. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Young Life, but Young Life is an outreach parachurch ministry. We like to come alongside the church with a capital C and focus specifically on adolescents, middle school, high school, college age adolescents to help them have a chance to be introduced to Jesus Christ and to grow in their faith with Him. I've been doing that for over 20 years now. A lot of those years I worked directly with students, middle school and high school students primarily, some college ministry as well too. In the last decade or so, I've focused my professional vocation on training Young Life staff, brand new folks we've hired full-time to work for us in ministry. I train them now. So I'm really a teacher at heart. I train and teach a whole lot in what I do. I have a little background in church-based youth ministry as well too. Worked for a short period of time for a church in my early ministry history. But it's been a real treat for me to journey even with high school kids or college students and watch them move into adulthood. A number of them the real treat is when they decide themselves to go work in ministry as well. Here's a little bit of my educational background. You just might find this interesting. Originally, I graduated from the University of Georgia with a bachelor's degree in pharmacy and am still a registered pharmacist in the state of Georgia. I like to kind of joke like, oh, what a cliche. Doesn't everybody who works in youth ministry start out in pharmacy, right? Which is obviously not true. But I worked in the corporate world for a little while. I worked for a big pharmaceutical manufacturer as a sales rep, and I also worked a little bit as a pharmacist while I volunteered in youth ministry. And then eventually I got a master's degree from Denver Seminary, and then I finished up my doctorate at Fuller back in about 2012, and I've been on the adjunct faculty here at Fuller since about 2014. So I really am grateful for the journey I've been on. Not exactly what I started out to do, but where I am now suits me just great. And I love being able to be connected with youth ministry, and I love to teach and train people to do youth ministry. But let me tell you a little bit more about my story, why I am in ministry now today. Through the years, I've done all the things you do in ministry. I've led worship, I've done the games, I've had small group Bible studies, I've done adventure, we've gone to great summer camps. So really for me, I would say it's not about the credentials along the way. The experiences that I've had in ministry really go back to some key moments in my adolescence. Who was the high school version of Tom Combs? Well, it was this guy right here. I was a scrawny kid on the track team as a sophomore in high school, really wondering where I fit in. I came from a intact family unit, but not a terribly religious family environment. We went to church, but it was not a strong part of our family dynamic. And I was like a typical adolescent. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't really know who I was. And so I did, by the grace of God, form some really good friendships in those years. By the time I graduated, these were my best friends back in the 80s. And I put this picture up partly to embarrass myself, but also to say these guys are still some of my best friends to this day. I talk to all these guys regularly. In fact, we get together to this day fairly regularly as well. But there's one significant person in this crowd that I want to point out to you, and it's this guy right here. He was a coach at our high school when we were scrawny, lost sophomores. And he picked us out and he took us in. He invited us over to his apartment. He taught us how to read the Bible. He taught us how to pray out loud with each other. Now, those are really formative things. He really was an incarnational in the way that he modeled Christ, and he invited us into his life, and he walked with us, and he pursued us. And that has significant impact on me. I just never was able to forget it. And even though I worked in the corporate world, I just couldn't help but think about kids and the chance that they needed to have, just like I had in ministry. So you probably have similar stories, people who had significant impact on you. And this is just one of mine. So I think Coach Smith, who's still a good friend today, is one of the reasons why I am working in ministry all these years later. All right, let's talk about the course itself. The course is called Foundation of Youth Ministry. Sometimes I think there's many foundations of youth ministry, so I often call it Foundations of Youth Ministry. But here's the idea. We're going to focus on the foundations. We won't spend as much time on the built part of ministry. We need to know what it is that you build ministry on. And part of the reason for that is if I were spending a lot of time on built ministry, I couldn't hit all the contexts where all of you work in or hope to work in ministry, because it matters immensely. The population of kids that you're ministering to, socioeconomics, ethnicity or race, or even geographical location, where you are in the world. All those things matter greatly. But the foundations are relatively similar. And so we'll focus on things like history of ministry to adolescents. We will focus on understanding and interpreting contemporary culture. We'll learn more about the significance of adolescent development and how all that plays into how we build ministry from there. We're gonna look at a theological framework for understanding what ministry to adolescents is. Again, a foundation or a pillar in what we do. So the purpose of this class really is to help you understand what the foundations are so that you can work on the built part of ministry moving forward. So here's what I want you to leave the course with. 4 big things. I want you to leave the course with an understanding of developmental and theological realities of adolescence. I want you to have a comprehensive theological and philosophical framework for ministry. I want you to understand different ministry needs in subsets of adolescence, the early, middle, or late adolescence, what's often today referred to as emerging adulthood. And then lastly, I want you to understand the significance, the foundation of relational and incarnational approach to ministry, and we'll talk more about that. But these would be 4 big outcomes that I want you to leave the course with. Course materials. Primarily your reading material are going to be these books right here. Adoptive Youth Ministry is your main reading resource. We'll read the majority of that throughout the quarter. We'll also read select chapters from HURT 2.0. If you've had some other youth ministry classes you may have read HURT 2.0, that's fine. We're just going to review or read a few chapters in HURT 2.0, mainly so that we can have common terminology when we talk about adolescence, adolescent development, and some key aspects to adolescence in the West. The other books we have here, The 20-Something Soul and Back Pocket God, are relatively new books that have come out in the last year or so, based on research in emerging adults with regard to their experience with institutional religion. And these are really insightful books in terms of understanding what happens once you exit youth ministry. And we'll read just some select chapters in those books. And then the last book you'll read, that everyone will read, is Reciprocal Church, which is just a really nice book that helps us think through how adolescents in ministry are adopted into or integrated into the whole life of the church, and how they make their contribution to the life of the church, and then how the body, the church itself, takes them in and makes a formative contribution in their lives too. Now there's one more book that you're going to read, one chapter from a book rather, you're going to read, called You Are What You Love by James K.A. Smith. He has a really interesting critique of contemporary youth ministry, and I'm going to let you read one chapter from his book and let you have a shot at responding to it, critiquing it, or going along with it, depending on how you take it. But those are our main readings that we're all going to do in this course. There is one optional reading assignment, and I call it optional in the sense that you choose which of the books, but you will choose one of these. There's 3 offerings that I've got here for you. The Soul of Hip Hop, Exploding Stars, Dead Dinosaurs and Zombies, and Saying is Believing. All really three very different kinds of books. You'll get to pick one based on whatever interests you. Saying and Believing is a really lovely book that talks about the importance of helping adolescents articulate their faith, and it combines some research in identity formation to show how articulation actually impacts formation, which is really significant because a lot of the research in Back Pocket God and The 20-Something Soul, as a lot of research through the years in adolescence has discovered, is that most kids are very inarticulate about their faith. Exploding Stars is how youth ministry can intersect with contemporary science. And then The Soul of Hip Hop is just understanding adolescence from a more urban and contemporary culture setting like that. So you pick based on whatever interests you. And then as we get towards the end of the quarter, I'll put you in a reading forum with fellow students who've chosen the same book, and you'll get to interact with them and process the book together. So again, optional in the sense that you choose one of these. You get to pick though. So just pay attention. There's more about this in the syllabus. All of this information is also in the modules. I'll remind you about midway through the course to make your selection for your optional reading, and then you'll be able to tell me which one it is, and I'll put you in the cohort for processing it when we get to the end of the quarter. All right, so course design, I think fairly similar to other courses you may have had at Fuller. For some of you, this is your first course. So here's the basic overview. You're going to interact with an online activity, such as listening to a lecture from me or watching a video that I've assigned you. And then you're going to have reading assignments, assigned chapters or pages of those course materials I just showed you, in the neighborhood of 250 to 400 words per week. So that's a significant amount of reading you're going to have to devote time for. And then you're going to post your impressions or responses to those assignments, the online material or the reading, in forum post. And there's more about that I'll tell you coming up. Here's how the class will flow each week. You'll have a reading forum due on Tuesday. That's your original post. There'll be a question that I'll ask you about what you read this week. You'll post it in the forum. And then this is really important. By Tuesday, I want you to respond to one classmate. I'm going to group you in small groups of about 8 to 10, so that'll be easier for you to do. Rather than having to read through the entire class's post, you'll have a small group to work through the quarter with. But it's very important for you to post on time so that other students have the chance to read your post. It's also important for you to post on time so that you're able to interact within the time frame with other students. So if you wait till Thursday, number one, people don't get to read your post. Number two, you're not really posting in the time frame that we wanted so that it's interactive like it's designed. And then on Thursdays of each week, I will want you to answer a forum question related to the lecture or content that week, and then by Friday of that week, interact with a classmate. Now, if you don't get the post done, I'm pretty gracious about this. I will let you turn in your post a week late, up to a week late. But if you do turn it in a week late, you can only get half the grade. So there's still reason to interact with the material. I read through all the forum posts. I grade all the forum posts. Forum posts are really the way that I can see how you're processing the material and how you're tracking with it. That's why it counts as 40% of your grade, which I'll show you in just a minute. I also grade forum posts probably a little bit more stringently than some of your other professors do, because I feel like this is where I really get the best insight into how you're not just understanding the material, but how you're thinking critically about it. I'm looking for critical thinking. I'm not looking for regurgitation of what you read or what I said. I want you to show me that you not only understand it, but you can apply it, or you can think through the implications of this new information. So the best grades in forum posts are the ones that exhibit critical thinking, and that you can show me that you understand this material in terms of how it impacts what we do in ministry. A number of times students will ask me, how do I get better grades in the forums? And my response really is, show me critical thinking. So I don't want you to be panicked about forum grades, but I also don't want you to worry if you're not getting the forum grades you want early on. I just want you to keep working at critical thinking skills. I just want to make sure that you understand kind of how I view the forums. They're really, really important. There are a couple of other things that I want you to be aware of in terms of other grades in the course. That is that we have a quiz in week 2. So that's coming up soon. And it'll cover the reading from HURT 2.0 and the chapter called A Brief History of Youth Ministry in the West that I wrote for you. I really want you to just have some basic terms and concepts and an understanding or overview of the history of ministry to young people as context. So it's a 10-question multiple choice quiz. I give you a little study guide. If you'll be thorough in the study guide, you'll do fine on the quiz. The people who don't do well in the quiz typically just don't take the study guide and the terms very seriously. So the quiz is not hard, but it will be if you don't pay close attention. In the middle of the quarter, we have a midterm project, which I think is a pretty fun assignment for a midterm project. You got to write a paper, but I give you a choice of 3 movies to watch that deal with adolescence. You watch the movie, and I'll give you a number of terms and concepts that we've learned in the course through weeks 1 through 5, and you'll be looking for examples of those in the life of an adolescent as portrayed in the film. And then you'll write a paper about where you saw those terms and concepts played out in the character. And then you'll have to think through, well, how would I create ministry that would intersect with the life of my particular character that I've zeroed in on. So a really fun project in that sense, practical, and you also get to watch a movie. So the final grade, the final project will be, it's kind of, you have a couple of options there. One of your options is to write a summary paper of the foundations of ministry so that you can demonstrate how you would build ministry from there. You can do that as a paper, you can do it as a narrated PowerPoint presentation, or you can do it in a video format if you would like. I want to give you kind of options that might suit you, your particular creative abilities, or just what works best for you. For some it's a paper, for some it's something more creative. I'm also going to give you an option to do a comprehensive final exam, which is a combination of essay questions, short answer, and multiple choice. The details about all those options for the final project are included in the syllabus, so I would just say take a look through there and let me know if you have any questions. Lastly, throughout the class, I will give you an opportunity to earn extra credit for your final project grade. So at any point throughout the quarter, if you, for example, don't do well on the quiz that I mentioned, or you are concerned about your forum post grades, you can make up for that by taking advantage of the extra credit options that I'll give you. I have a number of videos for you to watch that bring in information about youth ministry from different contexts that we don't have necessarily time to go through in the course. But if you'll interact with this material, there's a little short reflection question I'll give you for each one. You type your reflection, and I'll give you, depending on the particular extra credit option, 1 or 2 or 3 points that I'll add to your final project or final exam grade. So you can actually have a pretty significant impact on your final grade in the class just by taking advantage of extra credit. So again, you know, in these kind of courses, there's objective grading. You know, multiple choice questions are pretty objective, and then there's my opinion about grading as a professor. And the way that you fill in the gaps between objective and subjective grading is you take advantage of things like extra credit so that you can impact your final grade. How does grading work in this course? We follow Fuller Seminary's guidelines for that. You see the grade scale there, what counts as an A minus, B plus, etc. Here's how the course breaks down. As I mentioned before, the forums, the reading forum and the lecture content forums combined together for 40% of your grade, pretty huge. That multiple choice quiz in week 2 that I mentioned, 10% of your grade. The midterm project, where you watch the movie and then write the paper, is 30%, and then your final project or final comprehensive exam, whichever you choose, is 20% of your grade. Just other notes about the course. There is a course questions tab in the main section of the class when you log in. If you have questions about the class, if something doesn't seem to be working, or if there's any general problem with the course, post a question there. I get prompted by email when you do that, and I can respond to it. The reason I like you to do that is because others might have the same question, and that way we can, well, 2 things can happen. One is if someone figures out how to solve the problem, they can post a reply there and let you know. They might get to it before I do. But if you put a question there that others have, I can answer it, and then we can answer it for everybody that way. So course questions is the way to address general questions or concerns or issues. If during the quarter you are unable to participate in class for a legitimate reason, something's gone wrong, you're sick, a significant family member is sick, or some other kind of emergency or urgent situation, I understand those kind of things happen. So let me know if that's going on with you so I can work with you to help you stay either on track or get caught up. I would like to say this though, being busy in your full-time job is not what I consider a legitimate reason. I have a full-time job in addition to being the professor for this class, so I'm busy, and I know you're busy as well. The key in this class is diligence and good time management. The class is doable, but you just have to take responsibility for your time. So again, I'm sympathetic, but busyness is just not a reason for excuse for not staying engaged in classwork there. The easiest way to reach me is by my email address. You can also reach me by my phone number there. There's my cell number. Email is usually the best, but I understand if something seems a little more urgent for you, especially if there's an emergency, you can text me or call me. Just make sure I know who you are in the text message, because I haven't put all your names in my phone yet, so that's the best way to do that. Some kind of final notes: read through the course syllabus that's also in the main section of the course. There's some more details there. I've also included a weekly schedule so you can see the breakdown of the readings for every single week. Your reading forum is due on Tuesday, so obviously you want to read ahead. You don't want to wait until Monday to start your reading, but you'll have that schedule of everything you need to read so you can know what you're responsible for in the coming weeks. And then lastly, I just want to emphasize again, stay on pace. I think the course moves at a steady, predictable clip each week, but you really will have to stay engaged. And to make the point, I have made a little video that might make a little more of a lasting impact when I talk about staying on track and the predictable, steady pace of the course.
Hey everybody, Dr. Tom Combs right here. You can't tell, I'm on a mountain bike right now. It's a pretty day in Rome, Georgia. Thought I'd go for a little ride. And while I'm on this ride, it occurred to me, you know, there's some similarities between my mountain bike ride right now and this class. So we're just getting started. May seem like it's kind of starting slow, just like my ride does. And that's true. But things are going to pick up, okay? So just like I just came up this little hill right here, keep pedaling. All right, don't get behind. It's really key. I'm on a trail right now. You know, one of the key things about the trail, you got to stay on track. Get off the track, you end up in a tree or some less desirable place like that. So same is true for you. Stay on track. Stay focused. Stay on top of the assignments. And interact with me whenever you need to. Let's make sure that we make this a great quarter together. And let's enjoy the ride. What do you say?